This block is called 4 square. It's 12-inch finished. Here is the diagram. It's made of squares, rectangles, and half-square triangles. Here are what 4 blocks look like set block to block. Gives a little secondary design here. This is a 6x6 grid, which means for our 12-inch block, each section in this grid is 2 inches finished. Now let's look at the patches. Patch A is a 2-inch finished square. We'll cut 2.5-inch squares. Here are the AccuQuilt dies you can use. For the background, we need 8 patches or 8 squares. For both of the blue fabrics, we'll need 2 patches each. Patch B is a 2-inch finished half-square triangle. We'll cut squares 2 7/8 inches, cut them in half once diagonally, and we'll have 2 patches. For the background, we'll need 16 patches, so that means you cut 8 squares and cut each one in half diagonally till you get your 16 patches. For the blue fabrics, you'll need 8 patches. That means you'll need to cut 4 squares at 2 7/8 inches and cut each one in half diagonally for 8 patches, and do that for each of these fabrics. And here are the AccuQuilt dies you can use for that to cut your patches. I'm going to use the 2 at a time method to make half square triangles. So I'm going to cut squares at 2 7/8 inches, and I'm not going to subcut them. I'll have 8 squares for the background and 4 squares for each of the blue fabrics. Then finally, patch C is a 2-inch by 4-inch finished rectangle. We'll cut 4.5-inch by 2.5-inch pieces, and we'll need 2 of the light blue and 2 of the background. Now let's look at the fabric. We have our 8 patches here, the background and the 2 blue fabrics. We have our B patches for the half square triangles, 2 at a time. Here's our background and our 2 blue fabrics. Then we have patch C, which are our rectangles, and we have 2 of each of those fabrics. Now we're just going to take patch B and make our half square triangles. We'll have 8 of the dark blue and 8 of the light blue. On the back side of the light fabric, we're going to draw a diagonal line, put the fabrics together, right sides together, and we're going to stitch on either side of the diagonal line. Here is the diagonal line drawn, and then the stitching on both sides. Now we cut this in half along the diagonal line. Then we have our 2 half square triangles. Press the seams open and cut off the nubs. And we have all of our half square triangles done, and then they've been pressed open and the nubs have been cut off. We have 8 of each of these. Now we're going to piece the square units. We'll start by taking our A patches, the 4 blue patches, and 4 of the background patches and stitch them together. So we'll stitch them like this. Press your seams open. We'll piece the rectangles like this. Piece each rectangle to the squares and then press the seams open. Now we're just going to sew the bear paw units together. We're going to sew 2 half square triangles together like this, then stitch them onto this piece. Then sew these 3 pieces, the 2 half square triangles and the square together, and then piece it to that piece. Then you'll have 1/4 of your block. So you'll have 2 of these and you'll have 2 of these. Now we have our 4 squares. We'll just piece them together like this. And then the block is finished. Thanks for watching.